For Sunday, April 12th, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, a state representative pleads guilty in federal court. 11 Atlanta teachers will learn their fates on Monday. And Rand Paul and Hillary Clinton join the presidential sweepstakes. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us on this Masters Sunday. We're going to begin today in federal court. It's kind of a sad story. Jeff, I turn to you. Tyrone Brooks, a state representative of years and years, and in fact, I can't remember a time Tyrone Brooks wasn't serving in the General Assembly.
Exactly right.
He pleads guilty at age 68 to looting a charity he set up and to looting the Georgia Association of Black Elected Officials, $1 million over about a 15-year period.
He pleaded guilty, I think, to one tax charge and pleaded nolo to 4 or 5 other charges. I think that was probably a plea deal that was worked out with his pro bono attorney, Roy Barnes. It's a sad end for Tyrone. I mean, Tyrone was a hero of mine for decades, remains a hero of mine, and so many others, because he was a champion for poor people and black people, and you know, at a time when we had an offensive racist flag, he was there year after year to introduce legislation to change it, and you know,
and finally got it changed.
And finally got it changed, and we know of his long and dedicated work in you know, trying to get an end to some really
but in the end, he was
horrible crimes.
All
and
that said, and look,
Georgia.
I'm going to agree with you. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah.
I've made that trek out to the Moores Ford Bridge that he always championed. I remember being fascinated by that story. But in the end, he's a common thief. And in the end, he plays to the public perception, Phil, because he ripped off corporations. He shook them down. They gave the money to a literacy project that didn't exist. The same with the Georgia Association of Black Elected Officials. In the end, he was a common thief, and you wonder why Al Sharpton is under indictment.
Well, you're right. I mean, there's some great civil rights leaders of our day, but he's tarnished that image with what he's done because, for example, he stole from a charity that was supposed to promote literacy, and it was $1 million over a number of years.
They didn't have a single program.
That's right. It was all a shakedown and a scam.
Well, you know, a lot of this is has to do with how you set up your finances. You know, he could have set up these charities, taken a salary, paid taxes on that salary, and Tyrone would have been fine. Instead, what we're talking about is over a long period. $1 million sounds like a lot of money, but over 20 years, it's $50,000 a year, and you know, that's a salary that most charities can withstand and still continue to you know, to do good work and pay the people who administer it.
Put another way, it answers an age-old question. How does a fellow like Tyrone Brooks exist with a family on a legislative salary, which is for part-time work, of what, about $16,000, $17,000?
You don't.
Now we know.
So you need some
now
other,
we know how he lived on it.
Yeah, well, you need some other source of income, just like every other legislator needs another source of
Well,
income.
it's
it just
also
needs
arrogance.
to be.
It's arrogance because all too many of these people in public office feel they're untouchable. We've seen it regardless
I don't
of
think
party
it's a
or
matter
race.
of arrogance. It might just be more matter of not knowing how to set up your finances.
Well, you're being very kind. It's thievery,
well, absolutely.
Jeff.
I mean, go get an accountant. Go get somebody who can help you set these things up and do it properly.
Yeah, I think it's an unfair characterization to call him a common thief, and I think it is. It has to do with the way he set things up.
Can we call him a shakedown artist?
No, you
that's
can't.
What you're doing.
Well,
You're
but that was not the
guilty to
intent. And the Gabbio organization did a lot of good things throughout by celebrating the caucus of black elected officials. So I think
they shouldn't exist. There shouldn't be a Georgia Association of Black Elected Officials.
Why not?
And why
There's
not?
a Georgia Association of White Elected Officials.
No, there isn't.
Yes, it is. It's called the Republican Party.
No, there isn't. What a stupid comment.
No.
All right, well, here's another disturbing story this week. Didn't get a huge amount of play, but it's starting to bother me. A woman who was the PR person for the Georgia National Guard, Maria Therese Grabowski, on the whistleblower statute, just collected $480,000 from the state. That'll get you started in your job relocation program, right? But I mean, we've had the 2 ethics officials, at least one other that I can think of. Awful lot of quiet settlements going on under the whistleblower statute. The state's paying out millions.
Well, there are, and there's 2 sides to this coin. Obviously, you know, we need whistleblowers to look at corruption or wrongdoing, but on the other hand, a lot of these so-called whistleblowers are using this to their own advantage to try to tar people they want to get even with, who are their employers. And as we all know, it's often less expensive to just settle and make it go away. And I think this is what's happened in this case.
Well, but I think what bothers me about this case is that she took offense at her boss, Jim Butterworth, going to Paris on the company dime, so to speak, and then staying in Paris for a vacation when she didn't think he should even been on the trip. I mean, that, you know, Paris and company dime are often
You
troublesome.
should be paying for that out of your own pocket after your official business is done. I think we all agree on that.
And there was some additional charge that she made, that she was asked by his wife to promote a friend of theirs who was a performer, an
Country
artist.
music singer,
Country
I
music,
think.
right. So I think that there were some apparently legitimate enough charges for them to want to go ahead and make a settlement.
Well, that's what I mean. It's bothersome.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right. Now, the governor's begun to sign bills as a result of the General Assembly session that just ended. One of them caught my eye. We didn't really talk about this much, but the governor was proud of a bill that would allow 9,000 graduates of Georgia high schools who flunked the graduation test to receive their full high school diploma. And they're proud of that. I'm bothered by that. Is this more dumbing down of education, or is that test so bad that it couldn't be relied upon?
Well, I saw
Probably
where
a
Superintendent,
combination.
I did see where Superintendent Richard Woods said that the test was not all that great, and so he said, let's let it go this one time and get straightened out.
Yeah, not only that, but it helps an abysmal graduation rate in the state of Georgia by getting those 9,000 through. And you know, we need as many high school graduates as we can.
And then the other important thing is it's very difficult to get a job without that high school diploma.
The latter is certainly true, but I'm just worried that the high school graduation diploma is devalued. The fallout has begun from that session, especially on the transportation bill. It's interesting to me that one of those things they did essentially in the dark of night is coming back to bite, and that's the $5 per room hotel motel tax that the Senate put in. And the folks down in coastal Georgia are really upset about it.
Well,
now,
that's
Metro
right.
Atlanta's not saying it.
Well, I don't blame them. I mentioned this on the broadcast last week. The Savannah tourism folks in South Georgia, Marriott and Hilton can afford this fee, but I just thought that was terrible to pull that rabbit out of the hat at the last minute.
Well, I think it's the difference between people who are on business expense accounts paying the $5 per room night fee, or Alexis and her family going to the beach.
It only brings in about $180 million a year anyway.
Oh,
Only.
Well, you were going to have a bill if you didn't get close to $1 billion. I think that the governor made that clear.
You just can't keep rating these. I think it's going to be tweaked, and I think you're going to see this go away.
Now, in the meantime, it's going to be interesting to follow the debate. I can't make any really interesting points on this, but we're going to have a healthy debate on how to spend that $945 billion.
We sure are.
Yes, indeed.
Now, let's look back on some of the things that didn't happen, Phil. I'm surprised that a ban on driver's license for illegal aliens, was defeated.
You know, it never got out of the committee, and the committee chairman actually is representing a rural area where a lot of his business and agricultural interests turn a blind eye to illegal labor. So I think that was one of the problems. And we never did get a recorded machine vote. We all know how that goes. We've all watched the legislature, and a lot of times whoever's presiding will just let's have a hand vote.
Didn't the same thing happen to the early voting reforms?
That's right. You know, again, last-minute maneuvering. We didn't get a chance to get into some of that last-minute stuff, but Representative Mark Hamilton wanted to reduce early voting, and, you know, Sunday voting was very controversial.
He wanted to standardize that.
He just wanted one Sunday for 4 hours. That got tacked on to the ethics bill, which we can talk about that if you want to. That died at the last minute at the stroke of midnight. So early voting and, quote, ethics reform, unquote, died.
All right, we've got to get out. When we come back, we'll take a look at what's going to happen Monday in Fulton County Superior Court for those teachers who are on trial for 7 months. We'll be right back.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at myfoxatlanta.com.
Only rarely does your host find himself on the wrong side of an issue, but I may be on this one. I as the 10 of the 11 convicted Atlanta teachers and educators learn their fate tomorrow from Judge Jerry Baxter, I am so in favor of leniency for them.
No, you're on the right side.
That's the right side.
And normally I'm pretty much hard law and order, but I think that to obtain these convictions, they were overcharged using that RICO statute.
Yes,
They were.
Yes.
They've lost their livelihood. They have lost their teacher's licenses.
Yes.
Unlikely to get them back. I don't
That's
really
right.
know how that
Right.
all works.
Right.
But Phil, you want to take issue with me? I would like to see minimal jail time. I might even like to see time served, which would be the
Right.
last 10 days.
Well, I do somewhat disagree with you, and as we discussed last week, what is a RICO indictment? It's when there's a conspiracy to turn something into a criminal enterprise. Well, there was clearly a conspiracy headed by former Superintendent
That was
Beverly
not
Hall.
clear
Let me
at all.
finish. Let me finish. I know
Nor
you
is
love-
that, nor is that proved
well,
in court.
I know you love.
You say
I'm
it's
gonna
clear,
finish, I'm
but
going
it
to
was
finish
never
my point.
proved
I'm
in
going to
court.
finish.
Jurors
Can I
this week
finish
said
my
it was.
point?
Yeah,
for
but stick
once?
to the facts.
I am going to stick to the facts because the jurors said that Beverly Hall led this conspiracy. They turned the school system into a criminal enterprise. That's what the jurors found. I know you so beloved her. Why don't you point out how she betrayed predominantly African American children? It's an outrage, and these teachers
Yeah, and look,
and administrators went along with
The
it.
AJC did interviews with two of the jurors who
But
said
to a
just that.
trial, But that doesn't mean all of them agreed with that. I mean, I think that's just a matter of opinion.
She was never on
And it was-
trial,
Well,
and it strikes me as strange that jurors
saw the
would be talking
testimony.
about whether or not somebody was guilty who was never on trial.
jurors-
They
the
never
jurors-
heard any evidence against her. Did she obstruct evidence that showed or tried to
You even admitted, Jeff,
Tried
last
to
week.
conceal evidence.
You admitted last week on this broadcast that when people came in and told her there was cheating, she said, "Go away! I don't want to hear about this." She knew darn
certainly
well.
did.
She
She
knew
certainly
darn
did,
well.
but that doesn't mean that
That
you
she orchestrated.
orchestrated
So,
a
is she the
conspiracy.
jurors-
dumbest superintendent in America? Then?
The
She knew
jurors,
nothing.
I'm going to get
No.
I
off
don't
this,
buy
but the
that.
jurors said, look, she created a climate that rolled downhill that forced these teachers to take illegal actions.
I've said that all along. The climate was no excuses. You know, you have to have a 5% increase or 2% increase in academic achievement this year after year after year. That was the climate that she set, and it wasn't going to be met. And that's the only way that they could do it. That doesn't mean that she was over there orchestrating these test scores. I think that's absurd.
Will you condemn her administration?
The
for what
question
happened?
really
You
is,
don't
what
wanna
are we
do
going to
that.
do?
You don't want to do
with
that.
tomorrow?
You can't defend her
What are
so
we
you
gonna do
shout.
with these
You're
10
doing it
people?
again, Jeff. You can't defend her so you choose to shout. That's
No.
not.
Well,
I want to go across the river to Cobb County because personally, we're never going to resolve this Beverly Hall thing. God
No.
rest her soul, she's dead. So
Yes.
we're not going to, we're not going to resolve
There
it.
was no,
Right,
no
exactly. We
determination.
killed her.
So no, a disease called cancer killed her.
Yeah,
But I wanna-
cancer had gotten her once before. We killed her. The
I wanna-
AJC killed her.
No. Oh my goodness. I want to move across the river, to, the Chattahoochee River to Cobb County. Now we learn that the good citizens of Cobb County who voted for bond issues, green space, to purchase green space for more parkland, are not going to get their parkland, but they are going to get their Braves Stadium. The money is being diverted from that, Phil, to pay the interest on the bonds necessary to do the stadium. What do you think about that?
Gee, constituents have been lied to again by politicians.
Can
That's a
you believe
shocker.
it? Oh, my goodness.
And again, we see this time and again, and as we've talked about in Cobb County, there's been such a lack of transparency and sleight of hand. I'm glad the Braves have moved there, and it's a great thing for economic development in the county, not so much for transportation, but we can talk about that. But again, I don't like to see things like that.
Yeah, it's troublesome because actually it began under Sam Olens when he was the county commission chairman out there before he became attorney general. And Sam Olens said, we're not going to spend this money now.
Right.
Well, that left it there, available to the use of the current commission, and the money is being diverted. Now, I would argue, it makes me uneasy, but I would argue that this is for now, a better use of the funds because Cobb is about to reap a huge economic boon with the stadium and the economic development around it. But that's
You
what
could
I've
say
got
that,
now.
but it still seems that they would have at least been more transparent and more open with their constituents about what they were trying to do and what they want to do.
Now, we have to be careful on this next topic because the shoes haven't dropped yet. But I've been covering DeKalb County for 18 years and pretty closely. And
18?
18. That's how long I've had the crier in Dunwoody.
Wow.
And it looks to me like DeKalb County is about to blow sky high. I have some insider information that I can't share because I'm sworn to protect some sources. But a fellow named George Cheedy has done a piece for Peach Pundit that is devastating about how one indictment of a guy who owned a bunch of clubs and billiard parlors, a guy named Ishmael, what's his last name, Shura, could set the dominoes in place to see a raft of indictments. This man was indicted. The following day, Morris Williams, who was a deputy county manager whom I've known forever, going back to our basketball referee days, Morris retired.
Yeah,
Took
stepped down.
and protected his pension. That's probably the key there. And this involves off-duty policemen at illegal after-hours clubs. It involves...
Are they illegal after-hours clubs?
Yeah, they were licensed for billiards, and they had other activities going on in the back rooms.
Okay.
And they were in Tucker on Buford Highway. And I just see that apparently there's the allegation here that a lot of public officials got paid off to get them special land use permits to operate.
Right, zoning.
So, is it tied into the non-casino casino?
Well, I
could
don't
be.
know. I don't know the answer to that, but I think you're right. And some of the sources that I've talked to say that there are other shoes that are going to drop. I think that the feds, as we know, are probing corruption, as we know.
Well, now we know that definitively.
Well, we do know that.
Oh yeah, well we've known that all
We've known
along.
that for quite a while,
Right,
but
right.
and then of course former Attorney General Mike Bowers was called in by Commission Chairman Lee May. The famed investigator Richard Hyde is going to work already, from what I hear.
I'm still worried. I'm still leery of
There's
that.
going to be some indictments. I'm looking in the crystal ball.
Well, there could be some indictments. There have already been indictments. I mean, you know, Elaine Boyer was indicted, so we know that there was a federal
her
case,
husband.
and her husband, and we know that she's been talking to the feds and giving them information in
has.
exchange for a more lenient sentence. You know, but there's just too much speculation going on right now, and I don't think that it's helpful. I mean, we really just need to wait and see what comes of these investigations, particularly the official ones, the ones and the federal ones. And until then, you know, speculation is just that. It's pure speculation.
No,
and
that's what I said.
we
We
read
have
in
to be
Peach
careful
Pundit.
with it, but I think it's about to blow. I think the county is about to blow. There's so many issues. There's so many little smoke signals coming out
Right.
of serious fires somewhere.
When people,
And there seems
when
to be,
people resign
particularly
and
in the
disappear,
press.
that is a good cause
There
for
seems to be in the
speculation.
press, yeah. Well, you know, there seems to be a presumption of guilt, and I have a problem with that presumption of
Well,
guilt.
to-
We have
if
a
any-
legal system that is actually the exact opposite. But in, you know, whether it's Peach Pundit or this program or whatever, there seems to be a presumption of guilt that certain people have done something wrong
gotta
when they
get out.
haven't been proved to have done so, and that would include Burrow Ellis.
We got to get out. But Jeffrey, if any county deserves a presumption of guilt, it's DeKalb.
I don't think anyone does.
All right, something
Let's
when we come
prove.
back, I'm not sure which.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at myfoxatlanta.com.
Lots of little things to talk about, and one of the first one is Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, where an Uber driver picking up a client was stopped, and Atlanta police took his car into custody and arrested him. We're not doing too well on this free market approach to Uber and Lyft.
No, we're not. And you know, we have talked about free market economics here and healthy competition, and we have watched unfold, especially during our legislative session, what's been happening, this battle between the very popular Uber car service and also the limousine and taxi services who hate them and are fighting them, and we've
Yeah.
got to get this resolved.
Right.
We get it resolved by letting the market do what the market does and letting people make the kinds of choices that they want to make. And if they're at the airport and they want to take Uber, that's what they ought to be able to do.
Amen.
Amen to
Right,
you. I think
right.
we're all in
Right.
agreement
We're in
there.
agreement.
But you're going to put a lot, you understand that will put a lot of taxi drivers who sit out in that bullpen. I'm going to let me
I
change
read-
the
let me-
subject.
let me
There's so
mention an
many
interesting
passengers,
fact.
though. It's just another
Let
service.
me mention something that's very interesting. In New York City, we've all been there. We've all hailed those yellow cabs. There's more Uber use now in New York City
Then there are yellow
than there are yellow
cabs.
cabs. So that's where it's going.
Let me change the subject. We'll just say for the record that Rand Paul announced for president this week, and Hillary Clinton's going to announce this afternoon via social media. I guess you just can't give a speech anymore in this day and age. So I'm going to miss her announcement because I don't do social media.
Well,
so
you'll get
you
it.
want
It'll,
to.
it'll come
You
out
want
on
to.
the news
and that's going to
reports.
keep my blood pressure down because I won't see her announcement. You know, that's all very good.
Oh, man.
I want to talk sports. I don't know what the Braves did this weekend, but I got to say that last Sunday when my phone blew up, is that social media? And we got word that Craig Kimbrell has been traded by the Atlanta Braves to San Diego. I was just stunned. I mean, I've been around a long time. I'm always involved in sports my whole life. The Kimbrell trade just rocked my ship.
Well,
it was astounding.
I do social media, and of course, everybody was tweeting and
But then the Braves,
Facebooking.
but then the Braves win 3 in a row. So I don't know what
Yeah.
they did this weekend, but Sports Illustrated said this team could lose 100 games. I just hope they're wrong.
I
All right,
do too.
and I'm going to change the subject from the Braves to the Hawks. Here the Hawks are
Yeah.
in the middle of a dream season. It is a dream season for Atlanta. And 2 of our guys go knucklehead New York City in a bar at 4 a.m. With a game that night.
But did they? It seemed that there was some other altercation there.
Yeah.
And they were charged with obstructing a crime scene.
And one was charged with laying his hands on a police officer. Now, given the fact that Pierre Antiche is one of the biggest men I've ever laid eyes on at 7 feet, he looks like a Serbian war criminal.
Oh God!
I mean,
Speculation.
so I can understand the police might have not
Not a
been
good
too anxious
characterization.
to have him lay hands on them. And I know that these guys get off the airplane late at night after playing a game and they're going to go out. I understand that. But 4 a.m. on the streets of New York, you know what your mother said. Nothing good happens after midnight. And so now we have one Hawk, a key defender, Thabo Cephalosha, with a broken leg down by the ankle. And we have Pierre, and both of them facing charges. That's swell when you've got like 3-4 games left in the regular season, and now you're going into the playoffs.
In the meantime, they won that game in New York, if I'm not mistaken, and have won every game
Yeah,
since.
they did. They
Well,
played
at least
shorthanded, and they mowed down the nets.
That's right.
But
Happy ending.
eventually, depth
gonna-
tells. So there, dear
Yes.
viewer, you have learned the lengths to which I will go not to discuss Hillary Rodham Clinton for now. So when we come back, winners and losers.
Your love of sports is greater.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And we'll begin that with you, Phil.
Well, I want to make as my winner a young man with the University of North Georgia Corps of ROTC Army Cadets. It's Jonathan Strickland, and he was named the top Army ROTC cadet in the nation. So hats off to him. Another winner, you talked about, this is Masters Sunday over in Augusta, Georgia, the Augusta National. The Red Carpet Tour is the winner, and you know, that's been going on for over 50 years. It's been a great economic development tool. They bring folks over there. First impressions are so important. What better than the Augusta National and to schmooze with our business folks and the economic development folks. And also Mercedes-Benz will make a winner too, because they're moving into Atlanta, as we know, and they're moving everybody down from their headquarters in New Jersey.
All right, Alexis, what do you have?
Okay, I'm going to salute Reverend Norman Rates. He passed this week. He was a longtime chaplain at Spelman College, was a champion of the power of women and the wisdom of women, and he will be sorely missed. He was beloved by all. Wanya Lucas has been named the new president of Public Broadcasting Atlanta. She'll
She's got
replace
some
Milton
resume.
Clement.
She's
Yes,
got some resume.
she's got a real strong
She's a
resume.
Georgia Tech
Yeah.
grad, engineer.
Yeah.
Discovery Channel, TV One, so she's really going to be a perfect choice, I think. And then I can't remember if I last week saluted Ronald Johnson, who was the dean of the business school at Texas Southern. He's going to be the new president of Clark Atlanta University.
And we have
So-
a new president at Spelman,
Yeah,
too.
we did. I did remember that from last week. And then finally, Walmart. I'm going to congratulate them. The Walmart Superstore on MLK has an exhibit of 55 historic West Side legends, and it's a tribute to all the people like Tiger Flowers. Remember, he was the first African American middleweight champion who lived on the West Side. W.B. Du Bois, who was at Clark Atlanta. So not only will you be able to get your food and your items, but you'll get food for your mind too.
Okay, Jeff?
You mentioned Wanya Lucas, the new CEO at Public Broadcasting Atlanta. I'd like to salute also Milton Clipper, who's been there
Right.
for 20 years, has done a great job leading that organization,
He'll be stepping down.
and is stepping down after two decades of service there. Also, MARTA had an event this week, Stand Up for Transportation, and it was really designed to try to get some money into that transportation trust fund, that highway trust fund, for transit, for highways, for bridges, and all over this nation. And so MARTA is my winner. It was a successful event down at the 5 Point Station.
All right, and I'm going to reiterate what I said about the Atlanta teachers in the cheating trial. They're losers, obviously, but I sure hope they get some leniency. And Craig Kimbrell, you're my winner for the last several years. What a delight for Braves fans. It was excitement when Craig Kimbrell came out of the bullpen to be the Braves closer, and it's just not going to be the same. See you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.